Farm for Profit Podcast. Take a listen, have a blast. Farm for Profit Podcast. Learn about farming while having a laugh. Farm for Profit Podcast.
Hey listeners, welcome back to the Farm for Profit Podcast. This is Tanner.
This is Corey.
And we're sitting down here at Yacht. And I have to keep saying that because it's the United States Custom Harvesters Inc. Incorporated?
Inc.
Inc?
I think it's Inc.
Okay. We're here in Des Moines. We didn't have to go very far, Corey, to get to
No,
this.
it's very nice.
We
Very
didn't.
nice.
And listeners, you don't have to go very far to find our content because if you're listening right now, you've already found it. So why don't you help your friends and neighbors not have to go very far either and send them this show? Or send them our social
The
media.
content creator is capturing content right now.
You like that? That's right. I love it.
You want to pose?
Listeners, we thank you so much. If you've got topics just like this one, make sure you send those to farmforprofitllc@gmail.com. And I think today's episode is going to be one that a lot of people have discussed, and maybe this will help the discussions going forward.
Touchy subject.
Yeah, let's see if we can navigate this and glean as much information as we can.
Funny you said glean.
I did. Not going to gleaner anything.
You can't say that.
Oh,
We're not mentioning anybody. We're not singling anybody out.
That's right.
We're going to talk about the right to repair.
oh yeah.
And Tanner brought in a very special guest. Actually, this very special guest brought us in.
Yeah, exactly. Sherie, our
Hel-
lovely Sherie with Steinbauer.
Hi.
Hello.
Thanks for joining me in Des Moines.
Des Moines.
Des Moines.
How did you plan this spot right by the door?
I did, absolutely.
Like,
Yeah.
I want to be the one that's in last, and we just unload it, and boom.
Last in, first out.
I mean, it's the VIP treatment all the way for you.
Yep.
That's what we do. That's how we roll.
Yep.
Oh, great. We start our interview with Sherie, and now the cops come around the corner.
Oh, imagine
Are
that.
they coming to get you, New Zealanders?
If you call me a New Zealander one more time, I am going to need the police. Is it?
We're-
No, I honestly didn't do it this time.
He's probably coming
This time.
He's probably coming to protect us. That's our new military escort.
He's just coming to see if the bar's open yet, which is not. It's not open till 5.
That is the direction he's going. But no, thank you so much, Sherie. One, your hospitality is always fantastic. You take care of us better than you ever should.
And you're a fan favorite.
You are a fan favorite.
You
I
always
didn't-
get the most comments.
I always get some
I think
interesting DMs.
Maybe it's is it from us? I'd like you to
Yeah.
read some of those.
Let's not. This is a family show.
Apparently, we're preaching to some not family
I
type people.
should point out that we are all wearing Trade Mutt attire.
Yeah.
We've got on our customized Farm for Profit Trade
You
Mutt shirts,
do.
thanks to Sherie. And you've got the latest drop.
I do.
What is this, frog something?
Yeah, Who Let the Frogs Out as
Who let
this
the
one.
frogs out?
So this is actually one of my new favorites. I really like this one.
Why is there a block of cheese with frogs?
Well, because it's like you're out for a Sunday picnic
Oh.
in the rainforest, and then it starts to rain, and then all the animals come out. So
I
And
don't
there's a
know if a
snake.
rainforest is the place that I would pick to go have a picnic.
well, I mean, we don't have not everything in Australia is deadly, just like half of it. So
What was the child movie that you were talking about before lunch?
Wally.
Oh, that was Wally.
I love
Yeah.
when everyone's sitting
Wally.
around in Wally.
Wow.
You
I
know,
was
they're
like,
all
what's
sitting
Wally?
around in the chairs, and all of a sudden they look up and have to use their legs and walk around a bit. It's a
All
little
right.
bit like society's getting that way, where we don't put our steps in.
I
So
just pulled a
Hey, we went
Dave
down the stairs.
and a Corey.
you went down
At
the
lunch-
stairs
at
at lunch.
lunch, yeah.
Wow!
Didn't go up. I went down them, though.
I'll race you up tomorrow.
Yeah, there we go.
Maximize your yield potential with John Deere Planter Precision Upgrade Kits. Planting's one of the biggest factors in your farm's success, but we know margins are tight, and a brand new planter might not be in the budget. But that's why John Deere gives you the power to upgrade.
Boost speed with Exact Emerge, optimize product placement with individual row hydraulic downforce, Exact Shot, and Furrow Vision, or enhance efficiency with Exact Rate. Don't forget about the upgrades in LED lighting and the frame weight distribution. Get the latest technology without replacing your planter.
Set yourself up for success this planting season. Visit johndeere.com or contact your local dealer today. That's right. So yes, now to pull myself back on track, right to repair.
Right to repair.
What is that? What does it even mean?
So right to repair has been a movement for a long time now, but it's really gained momentum because as machinery and our devices get more complicated, we don't want to be stuck with a particular manufacturer. If my Apple screen, like my iPad we were just discussing here, has got a nice big crack in the screen, I don't want to have to take it back to Apple in order to get it repaired without losing my warranty. And so right to repair covers a huge array of things, from electronics all of the way through to agricultural and construction machinery. It's a big thing to look at. And I think that's where the misconception and unfortunately a lot of purposeful misinformation from some places has started, is that no one really knows what it is, because it's just this huge, great big thing. And how do you separate repairing an iPhone from repairing a $1 million combine? It's a really tough thing. And I've been fortunate that I've been part of a focus group for the last couple of years for the industry, looking at right to repair, talking to farmers, because obviously farmers can be a little conscientious about talking to manufacturers or regulatory people. So I've done a lot of interviews, asked a lot of questions as to what concerns farmers the most, and what do they really want from right to repair? What do they want to be able to repair themselves? What are the pitfalls? What questions do they have? It's a big topic, and I think unfortunately, because it's so big, there is just too much misinformation out there right now.
I don't know if I realized it was more than just farm machinery, ag equipment. This is a bigger, broader issue.
It's a huge issue, and it all comes down to intellectual property is basically what it is at the end of the day. So you have the software on your iPhone is proprietary software. It's from Apple. So what should a customer have access to? What should an independent repair shop have access to? It's not cheap to develop things. Research and development, coding, all of these things are really expensive. It takes years to get there.
I mean, I could answer that right now. We should be able to change the battery,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
And we should be able to put a SD card in and not have to get upcharged to the 1 terabyte.
Exactly.
And then when 1 year later, when I go to trade it in, I get no value, whether it's a 1 terabyte or a 64 gigabyte phone. No trade difference. What the hell?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's crazy. But this is where, software as a service has become a huge moneymaker, because this is where, the App Store, Apple charging for cloud storage, Amazon charging for cloud storage, is big money in it. And wherever there's big money, there's always going to be friction.
And it kind of feels like we're just at the start of this, because we were at the Land Expo a couple weeks ago, and they talked about how much land is going to be going to power production, and the biggest driver and what we have actually been in a lull for power needed in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to put these data centers online, and we need a lot more power. Data centers need a lot of power.
Yep.
And I'm like, holy crap, we have a lot of data and software now. What's coming? AI is driving this, all that. People
don't realize how unenvironmentally friendly most cloud storage data places are. They are a hog. They create a lot of heat, because you've got a whole lot of servers and so forth and storage devices. It's a lot of heat. It's a lot of energy. But they're environmentally friendly, which for me is a weird thing.
Yeah, it
How
makes
is
their life easy, so they're just going to look the other way. It's kind of like a vegan with leather seats in their car.
Yes.
Wow. That was straight into the point there.
Right?
I get it. I just want to know, though, is there a law in place right now that's keeping me from being able to repair my own?
As I said, it comes under intellectual property. So even though you're buying a combine from whatever manufacturer it is, there is intellectual property that's involved within that ECU. So the brain of the computer, that's the brain of the machine, that drives everything. And as you guys know, modern machinery is so complicated. There's so many sensors and values, and the software coding is thousands of lines long. It's thousands of lines long for a reason, because it's looking at so many different things. It's the brain of the machine. That's intellectual property. So the manufacturer, even though you purchase that machine, you don't own the intellectual property inside the machine. However, the manufacturers do all allow customers to buy a customer version of their service software. So there are certain things that you can do, but you can't do everything. And there's a good reason for that. I don't know how to code. I don't know what I'm ticking off or ticking on, or, oh, well, I'll just turn this off and that won't affect anything else. Oh, well, now it does. Well, now the machine's not compliant. It's complex. It's really hard. And that's been the discussion for the last couple of years, is it's not so much the right to repair that manufacturers don't want to have. They're on board with their customers being able to repair machines to a certain point, but that point has to have an end. You can't just give open access. Because, same as mechanical. Some people are really good at mechanics, and some people can't even change oil.
I mean, I think generally that's what people think is when they hear repair. Like, they want to fix mechanical things. But they've done such a good job of interweaving the software and technology into the simple things like just fuel and air, mixture, right? Like, or, starting the tractor.
But that, I do think when you initially started the conversation, you talked about blatant misinformation that's been passed along.
Yes.
Because it's not that you can't replace parts by yourself.
That's correct. And it's not that you can't have an independent person replace things. There is only certain things that they can and cannot do. And I guess the biggest concern, which is a big concern, for us at Steinbauer, because we tend to get thrown in the bucket with everyone else, is I know that everyone hates the emission laws. We get it. It's a pain to deal with, but it is there for a reason. And this is where the misconception comes from, is that you should not be able to touch the emission system, because what most people don't realize is if you do something to the emission system and take that into your dealer, that dealer is not allowed to work on that piece of machinery until it's returned to standard. And they can get a fine by the day and in general for having a non-compliant piece of equipment in their workshop. Most people don't realize that. They just go, well, it's mine, I bought it. Well, yes, we understand that you purchased it, and you can fix it up to a certain point. And it's that where within the regulation, all of the manufacturers and the engineering side of the industry, we want to make sure that the wording that's put in there protects both the manufacturer, because if you're not protecting the manufacturer, you're not protecting innovation, because innovation costs money. So we have to protect the people who innovate and make new products and come up with the drones and the great technology that you have to make farming easier. We have to protect that, but we also have to give the farmer access to be able to do things. It's, so for you, for instance, Corey, if you're fixing farm machinery, you can fix it up to a point. And then you should really have to call in an independent repairer who can maybe have a different level of access because he's been through the manufacturer training and they can fix it to a certain point. And then it stops there. And then it really does need to be a manufacturer thing. It's tough. It's a really slippery slope. Like, where do you put those barriers in place? When is enough for each line, for each line?
It is just this circle that just keeps on. This thing screws up that thing, this thing screws up that thing.
Yep.
I mean, it could go all the way down to access to labor, not having the labor. I mean, it's no longer someone that can go to a diesel mechanic school and figure out just how a diesel engine works to work on a diesel engine. Now they have to be almost computer programmer.
Yeah.
And that level of tech, that's hard to find, especially where's agriculture done? Very rural areas.
Yeah. And I think that was one of so part of the focus group I did, it was a bit of a 500, interviewed around 500 farmers from everything from 200 acres to 25,000 acres, so small all the way through. And the things that they were concerned about the most was the shortage of trained technicians. So with the super dealer structure with equipment manufacturers now, a lot of the smaller individual shops have closed down and they've been rolled into big super dealers. Customers were going, why should I have to wait 4 days? It's harvesting. I need to harvest now. I can't wait 4 days for a technician and then 3 weeks for parts. That was a big concern that they had. And also they felt that the manufacturers had become disconnected from the local community, that they were now becoming just a number. And
that's hard, right? I mean, even as our audience grows, it's hard for us not to have listeners that we don't recognize when they come up to us at a trade show.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if we met you 2 years ago in Louisville, but that was 2 years ago.
My name's Sherie. Nice to meet you.
Yeah,
Hi.
exactly.
Hi.
And,
How you doing?
and it's not that they
You're
don't
easily
matter.
remembered.
Right, it's not that they don't matter, just like any other manufacturer's customer. Every one of them matter, just there's a lot going on.
There is, and it's as much as the world has changed and become more global, there is great sides to that, and there is also a downfall for that. And the downfall is a lot of those smaller independent dealerships and repair shops have fallen by the wayside because they can't compete. They can't carry the number of parts that you need now. They can't compete wage rise with technicians. It's a difficult balance that everyone, and the manufacturers are stuck in the middle. They're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't.
And we're growing a commodity that is, we are our own worst enemies. If we can do it so well, we produce it. Our margins are so tight, we cannot keep having all of our inputs, our tractors, our fuel, our labor, all that just continue to increase while our margins are just like this all the time. They never get big.
This year, 2024, as you know, this was really tough. Pretty much every farm I visited during harvest season they were basically just covering the cost. They maybe had 1 or 2 cents over their input cost for what they could get out of harvest. And at that point you go, is it better off to just let the field sit for a year? I have customers with, more than $1 million worth of soybeans or corn in storage because they're not going to sell it.
It's a nasty beast because you let it sit, then someone else is there doing it.
Yep. So there's so many directions we can take this conversation, and I know it's going to bounce around because of that. But I want to go back to what you were talking about for qualified labor, especially on the mechanic side of things. Just imagine as this evolves, you right now have some of the top trained mechanics at dealerships.
Yep.
Maybe not the most talented, but at least those that have access to the most training. And then you've got what are affectionately referred to as shade tree mechanics, the one-offs or the smaller businesses that are working directly with the farmers. And then you have maybe some sizable operations that have brought in a mechanic of their own. If this works its way into that process of, like you said, and there are no levels, can you imagine what that does to the shortage of mechanics at a dealership? Does that mean that large farmers, the ones that are running more of a business and corporate operation, start to recruit mechanics away from dealerships because the viability and the uptime of their own operation is most important?
I think, I don't know, I would think that you would literally be in a situation where you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, because right now we don't have enough technicians. There are thousands of technician jobs that are open. My son is being transferred from his company in Australia to the US to work on mining machinery because they can't get people here that can work on the mining machinery.
Wow.
That's a long way to go to get a technician. It's the same with the guys at Uchi here. We have several conversations with them. They are struggling to get equipment operators. We are unfortunately in an industry where we are labor intensive. We just don't have the people to fill it. And if I have to steal a mechanic from, a manufacturer to come and work for me, then he's short, and then that means the mechanics that are left there, they have to work more. People get burnt out. And we know a lot of independent mobile repair guys that were originally from an OE dealer, and they couldn't do the 70, 80 hour a week anymore. They were done. They were burnt out. They're like, I may as well work for myself. And I think that's very dangerous for everyone, is unless we all work together, that means the farming side, the manufacturer side, and the independent repair side, unless we all work together, we're literally going to be stealing off each other. And that makes no sense. No one wins.
Well, that Peter to pay Paul theory is the same way with autonomy.
Exactly.
If we're struggling to find those to work for us and run machinery, now we go to autonomous machinery or autonomously aided machinery, which involves probably more intellectual property that is continued to be protected or locked down.
And then you have to have people that have at Steinbauer we're a little bit different because we have software engineers, mechanical engineers. We have an engineering team, so we look at a problem from end to end. Whereas, how will you train the technicians of the future? Will you just have technicians that are trained in the software side that understand a little bit about farming? And then you'll have the mechanical side that can do up to a certain point. So then you need 2 people to do one job.
That's literally how it is in the back shop. You got the guy that works on the old tractors.
Yep.
And then you got the young kid that's working on the new stuff, and they literally have to come together on some things. And sometimes that guy's not there, or he's busy doing something else.
Yeah.
And
Out on a call, or
and that's frustrating. Or you make a field call. One person comes.
Yeah.
Right, a service call.
and you need 2.
And you need 2. That's right. And so then what happens? You might be facing bad weather. So does that mean you go from, a really good harvest of beans? Well, now you're losing quality because you've now had to wait and it's rained. And what, just because the part wasn't available, or the person wasn't available, or the person they sent wasn't trained? So from that standpoint, one of the things that, one of the proposals that we were trying to push forward is that, from the manufacturer standpoint, is that you need to have a stopgap in the middle. So you need to allow independent repairers to go to manufacturer workshops where they can do a 2 or 3 week workshop. They can get the basic understanding, then they can go on to the next level. So there's different levels that they can do, so that Bob's Repair in, Slater, Iowa, he has an accredited case mechanic or accredited John Deere mechanic, somebody who's been through enough stages that A, the manufacturer is comfortable, B, the guy running the shop is making money out of it, and C, the customer's getting the service that he wants.
Well, Bob's the best.
Bob's and Slater. Yeah, go there.
Everyone goes to Bob.
That's what we need to have on our new sign on the studio.
Yeah.
I don't know how I want to go with this. I think I want to ask you about. I'm gonna put my major farmer hat on here.
Okay.
I feel like I love technology. I literally do, but I do feel like it's kind of getting shoved down our throat. Like, no, it's just gonna have this amount of technology on it now, and that's what you're gonna get. Which in turn you can't fix because it's all software and proprietary.
Yes.
Why can't we just get like a dump tractor?
Like a feed wagon tractor.
Yeah, I got to feed cows. I need to know that the def isn't going to freeze up because I got to feed whether it's -30 or 90 out, and I need it to run. That's why I don't know how many feed tractors have def on it.
Well,
it's all old.
It's all linkage,
it's all
to shift gears. You don't have to go
30-10,
anywhere.
40-20s, 4000s. Like, it's all that.
Manually engaged PTO.
So, in a way, it as a farmer, it kind of feels like some of us are being left behind. Like, we love, new technology for things, but does it all need it? Why can't we have the dumb version?
I agree. I think it's a valid point. It's, to a certain stage, you need to have a scaled down basic version. But remember, a lot of the issues and a lot of the technology came in with the change in emission laws. And so when emissions came in, we had to add that beautiful, after treatment stuff that required more programming, that required components that people weren't used to. When you have such strict emission laws and you have people trying to work in difficult conditions, it's a really difficult balance. Like, who's right and who's wrong? It's the same as an automotive, like a car. There is no longer a car that people can afford because the government says, well, you have to have this and this and this and this and this. So car manufacturers can't push out a $20,000 car anymore, because of everything that has to go in it. If we had a look at it from a regulatory standpoint and said, okay, we are happy with this. This is good, and you can do this tractor instead of it now being 74 horsepower for, before you have to have emissions system on there, the after treatment. Let's say each manufacturer is allowed to have one tractor, which is a utility tractor up to 100 horsepower that can do your general farm work.
Yeah, let's do 125. That'd be good.
Heck, what if I just want to go farm dumb? I want to have a 400 horsepower tractor that I'm willing to not steer.
No, you got to go to 700
or whatever.
Yeah, gotta go
I know,
700.
but that's what I'm saying. Like, we're getting squeezed out a little bit, right?
And you're getting squeezed out, and this all comes down to, and I'll probably get a whole bunch of awful DMs from lawyers, but at the end of the day, when you have too many lawyers that sit around and think shit up, we end up with too many regulations that don't make sense in the real world.
So who are you doing these 500 interviews for? I mean,
So
you were doing them for Sherie, but who are you doing them for?
So it was, You know me, I like to know more. And, I keep sitting in all of these meetings for right to repair, and I get pulled from one side to the other because we're a manufacturer. And I also, half of my friends are farmers. It's a really tough spot to be in. And unfortunately, in today's media, I literally believe almost nothing that comes out of their mouth. So you sit in these advisory meetings and you have somebody, well, this is what's happening and this is what they said and this is what they said. And it's like, well, where did you get this information from? Oh, well, we surveyed 25 farmers. Okay, well, what size farms did they have? I don't know. So I reached out and said, okay, what are the main questions that we need to have? Spoke to several different farmers, spoke to a few people at manufacturers. What information do we really want to know? What are we looking at here? And so then I started calling. We got a farm list, and I wanted so many people from each demographic because that's what's missing. All of the big lobbyists and everything else, they go for the people that have got thousands and thousands of acres. These are not the people that right to repair affect the most. Right to repair will affect the smaller farmers the most because they're the ones that can't afford a brand new piece of machinery that's under warranty every year. They're the ones that live in areas where they have a good independent service tech that can come out and fix machinery. They're the ones at a disadvantage. And unfortunately, the numbers are always skewed towards the bigger farmer. They're the people that they call. I get it. They've got 25, 30,000 acres. I have one customer that farms 140,000 acres.
Yeah,
he is
Corey.
Literally
140,000 square feet, maybe.
140 acres? Yeah. But, he's literally on a hot dial list. And when I talked to him about this, his needs were completely different from a farmer with 400 acres. It's a night and day difference. And this, for me, is where the manufacturers, and from a regulatory standpoint, this is where it falls down, is that the focus that they're looking at is too narrow. They're just looking at the new equipment and what's available for the big farmer at this end.
Right.
They're not looking at this end of the scale for somebody who's going in to buy a piece of machinery that's 6 or 7 years old at auction. That's the problem that you have.
Is the core of all this emissions, like you said? Is that where it all started, or is that?
Look, looking back at the history of it, right to repair has been around for as long as we've had, the smart engine came in with the ECU. That's when we started programming. But things have got more and more complicated. The more electronics you put into things, the more proprietary the software has to become. And data theft, intellectual property theft is a huge thing. It's one of the reasons I hate flash tuning. Because you can literally get a person who's never seen a piece of farm machinery in his life, hack into a manufacturer software and go, here you go, have at it. Here, it's $2,000 for the map. And this is my biggest fear with right to repair. If they don't get the verbiage right, you will have untrained people like what we have now touting that right to repair, here, come and buy my laptop. I saw that at Farm Progress. Come and buy a right to repair laptop. There is no right to repair laptop. There is only one state in the US that has passed legislation which actually lists agricultural equipment, and that's Colorado.
So
is the only state.
She said you're hoping that they get it right. Who's they?
Regulatory wise. So the industry and the regulatory body, instead of doing this and forgetting about the farmer, they actually need to sit down with real people in a real circle, and not just a bunch of lawyers and a bunch of lobbyists and the manufacturers. You need to have an honest conversation and say, what do we want to achieve out of this? And how do we get there?
So the regulatory arms, what is that? The EPA? This isn't a congressional issue, or this is a congressional issue?
Well, I think there was 33 states proposed the legislation since 2021. 4 have passed a right to repair legislation, but as I said, only 1 has included agricultural equipment.
So this is all United States?
This is all United States.
Why are we governing the world? I mean, you go to Brazil, I don't think they have to deal with this stuff, do they?
No, they don't. But I mean, you're looking at, right to repair goes back a long way. You're back to the first computers, is where who has the right to repair your stuff without voiding warranty, and that's a difficult thing. And unfortunately for farmers, you've just been thrown into it literally because farming equipment's got so complicated. that now you can't repair your own stuff, and the manufacturer doesn't have enough people to send out to you. You don't have to wait. So who's responsible? At what stage does your right to repair stop and the manufacturers begin?
So AEM, that's the Association of Equipment Manufacturers?
Yes.
So the statement that they've put out is equipment manufacturers strongly support their customers' ability to repair the equipment that they own, access certain tools and information that are vital to reducing downtime, maximizing productivity, and promoting proper and safe repair procedures. This includes access to, provided by the AEM, manufacturers to provide safety materials, manuals and service bulletins, product service guides, onboard diagnostics, or access to diagnostics tools, training, best practices, publication, guidelines on services, parts, and safety, and parts at prices set by authorized outlets. That doesn't sound bad, coming from the manufacturer side.
No, it doesn't. And that's where, it's really frustrating from my side, because I'm sitting in the middle between a manufacturer and a farmer. And it's not a simple issue, but what the manufacturers are asking for is reasonable. It's very reasonable. But then you go to the far extreme where you have, groups that are getting involved that have no business getting involved and just saying, well, they should have access to everything.
It's like an activist group or something?
There's different farming lobbyists, that are advocating for farmers. There's obviously, behind the scenes, there are companies which write different kinds of software for not just farm machinery but cars and so forth in general. They're the ones that want open access to the software, and I am sorry, you shouldn't have access to everything.
Yeah.
But I don't think what the manufacturers are asking for is unreasonable. They want a tailored approach. They would like you to be able to fix things up to a certain point. It's how do we decide where those parameters are?
Yeah, so the same, can I cut you off? So the same bulletin states why they want to provide a barrier is they're afraid that legislative proposals will provide access to things that are more than safe and secure, could compromise the safety of operating the equipment, the safety of the operator, threaten the safe maintenance and repair of equipment being done by untrained and unexperienced technicians, facilitating violation of emissions, like you'd kind of already talked about, increase the likelihood of a cybersecurity attack, and leave equipment vulnerable to untrained and unauthorized parties. Now, I can hold my thought if you want to continue with your question, but I don't feel like those are unreasonable either.
I didn't have a question, just a comment. I was just going to say that there's, on the other side, there are some really well done videos that I've put out there that are really tugging on farmers' heartstrings. I've had friends that I graduated with in college send me them that have nothing to do with agriculture. Like, are you guys talking about this? This is terrible for you guys. And it's a great video.
Is it like the PETA version of?
Kind of.
Yeah.
It kind of is. And it makes you kind of get behind it. Like, yeah, I want the right to repair my own equipment. At the end of the day, I could care the least. I do not want to be a computer nerd that has to get my laptop out to repair my tractor.
Where have you guys been?
We just got back from the Custom Harvesters event where operators from across the country couldn't stop talking about Steinbauer performance modules.
Yeah, they're seeing up to 25% more power, better fuel efficiency, all with smarter injector duration and not altering the rail pressure for safe and reliable performance.
If you're looking to maximize your machine's potential, go to steinbauer.us and tell them Farm for Profit sent you to get yours today.
And that's where it's really tough is the misinformation, like at the Farm for Progress. And I had a interesting conversation with a customer who stood there like toe to toe poking at me because he's like, you don't know what you're talking about. I just bought a right to repair laptop and I can do everything. And it's like, no, what you did was you just paid $10,000 for nothing. Someone conned you. And that's the hard thing, is that there is so much misinformation going towards the farming community that you're going, oh, well, yes, I want right to repair and it has to be blanket and I have to do everything. When you actually talk to the farmers, that's not what they want. They want to be able to fix up to a certain point, And then what they really want is for their independent repair shop, who might be within a 20-mile radius of their farm, they want him to have access to the right training, the right software, because if the manufacturer can't get them somebody, their local independent repair person can. You know, we saw the same thing with cars. The motor vehicle industry went through the same thing where they have to, independent repair shops now, if they're certified, you don't lose your warranty. We absolutely have to have the same thing for farming and off-road equipment. And we've got to stop fighting about it. It makes no sense for farmers to get the wrong information and then they get upset, and then the manufacturers are going, well, look, I just spent, a few $100 million coming up with this technology. Why should I then hand it over to you? That will literally stop innovation.
Well, and fighting this costs money too. And it's, to me, it doesn't sound like we're too far off. The majority of the folks are not too far off.
No.
And there is money being spent that is unnecessary to where, is it just the far extremes on both sides that's holding this up to where we can't get regulatory processes put into place?
It's hard, obviously, unless you sit in the room. But as we all know, regulatory bodies and government is unbelievably inefficient. It's a whole lot of hot air in a small room earning too much money, as far as I'm concerned. I had a meeting with a representative, shall I say, from the government. She had seen one of our other videos on electrification and wanted some clarification. Now, she's in a very highly paid position was in the previous government, and she's had zero idea about right to repair. And she's like, well, no, you just can't have it. It's not allowed. And I'm like, okay, but where do you come up with that? Well, no, we just can't have it. It's just not fair. It's too dangerous. It's a cybersecurity risk. People will hack into farm machines.
The
and
Russians
do what?
are going to start driving our tractors? What's the fear?
And this was, for me, it was really hard because I'm sitting there going, this is an actual person in government who has zero idea about farming, about farm equipment, or what even farmers actually want. Has anybody, a lot of the surveys and stuff that are done, they're talking to 10, 25 people. This is not enough. This is really not enough. There's a big difference between a small farmer in Pennsylvania's needs to a big commercial farmer that's doing, tens of thousands of acres. There's a huge difference. Why can't we come to some kind of reasonable compromise in the middle that protects everyone?
I think we just need to call up Elon and get Doge going, and that's what'll do it.
What's interesting is
I don't want to get on the crazy train right now.
the report,
nothing else has worked, so maybe crazy would.
That's a good point. Let's all jump on board the crazy train.
To me it seems overwhelmingly simple, and I understand I don't know the details of it, right? Just a podcast host, but I understand that there's pain points from all sizes. Are we pushing so hard from both sides because we don't have trust anymore? Is that the issue?
I believe we can't play nicely together. Everybody is in it for themselves and their own agenda. It's not like, I was raised on a farm. I was raised around farmers, and I have a little bit of a different slant on things because I was raised by my dad. All my cousins were males. I wasn't a girly girl. So men and women's brains operate differently. And unfortunately, it's almost the same now with right to repair and the legislation. It's like we're not all on the same page. It's everybody's pulling in their own direction, and it's become about my name on a headline. It's the same as people ask me about the EPA and fining for deleting emissions. Okay, you know what? That's great. But do you know who the EPA chases? They chase the dollars. They're going to chase people who have got bricks and mortar and who can afford to pay the fine. They're not going to chase Bob for deleting, 50 over-the-road trucks because Bob doesn't have anything. Poor Bob. He's busy in Slater, Iowa.
He is. He's one of the best.
He's one of the best. So, you know what? I think what really needs to happen is there needs to be an overall focus group. And when I say a focus group, I mean not just from political donors and people that are going to say what you want them to say. You need to do a random selection. You need to randomly select independent repair shops. You need to have some of those guys. You need farmers of all different sizes and also differences around the country, because from a manufacturer standpoint, maybe you buy a green tractor and you're surrounded by red dealers. Well, what happens when something breaks down? They have to run the gauntlet, or they have to come from 200 miles away to repair your machine. It's never going to be the same everywhere, but unless we actually get a proper sprinkle, I guess, of the full demographic, we're never going to get there. We're always going to be at one extreme or the other. It's, right now I think it was, what are we looking at here? I did take some notes, but there's a farmers, like one of the agricultural newspapers put out, and I would like to call it a fluff piece, but it was just plain outright sad, because there was no fact based in the article. Yet this is a big farming publication that goes out to farmers nationwide. Did anybody?
But no one reads that.
I was going to say, now, if somebody did that on a podcast, I'd be a little bit more upset, because way more farmers consume podcasts than a publication.
They do, but, I've got to say, there are still a lot of old school farmers out
there.
With
the money.
They're the ones making the decision, and they're the ones going to their local politician. I want this. I need right to repair. When they don't really, they read a couple of newspaper articles, or they see some weird video on TikTok or YouTube. Oh, well, that's exactly what it says. And I've had that conversation. I mean, I had the conversation around the corner before, because this guy's going, well, no, these guys told me I can buy the right to repair laptop from them. I'm like, they're not selling you a right to repair laptop. There is no such thing.
We should put a right to repair laptop in our merch store.
Yeah, I can,
Could you just write that on your computer and put that on the...
We'll get you a new one. That's the right to repair one.
You can get those little toy ones, like from Amazon. We can get one of those toy ones. Here you go.
Is it?
Get him some geek
Is
on.
it an Apple
you
or
open
an HP or what?
It's an Apple.
What is the right to repair?
Oh,
laptop.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like it's one of those tough books. One of those big tough book
Microsoft,
things.
I think isn't it tough?
probably a
book?
Windows. Yeah.
Yeah, because we all love Apple. I come from the church of Steve Jobs. I've never owned a non-Apple device. So
even in the when we went from flip phones, you didn't ever own a BlackBerry or anything in between.
You had the
Those
original
ones that
iPhone.
were never really smart, but you could still kind of get on Facebook.
Yeah, my first computer was Lisa. Lisa from Apple was my very first computer. And I've had Apples the whole way through. I did have a Nokia when I used to work at a phone company in Australia, and so they gave us Nokia as our work phone. The old 5110, where to type a text message, you were like,
Did you get to play Snake on it too?
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Or the little Tetris thing.
Yeah.
That's about as complicated as got. But as technology gets more complicated, the regulatory part of it, the machine is so slow and so inefficient. I mean, this is 2021 was when the manufacturers came out with a memorandum of understanding to say we will provide these certain things. We're now in 2025, and I've been doing this for 2 years, and it's like Groundhog Day.
Yeah, I know, again, I'm oversimplifying it, but if somebody organized an event, every state's got commodity organizations. You got Iowa soybean growers, you've got Iowa corn growers, you've got Iowa cattlemen, Iowa pork producers. If each one of them appointed, it doesn't have to be a farmer, it could be a mechanic from the area.
Yep.
If they appointed a representative, same thing with every other state. You got your potato growers, you got your onion, just whatever operation it is in agriculture, and y'all get together.
You absolutely need to have mechanics involved.
Yeah.
And this is, for me, that's one of the biggest, and I guess I'm biased because my boys are all mechanics, but you have to have mechanics involved, because at the end of the day, they're the one that has to stand there and try and fix it. So if you don't have those people involved, you've already lost the battle.
So maybe each association needs to send a producer and a mechanic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't, and then lock them in a room. You can't leave until it's figured out.
Lock them in a room.
Well, it's like blood sport, isn't it?
Only one of you's coming out of here.
and you have to have the new regs.
Choose your weapon.
I don't know. I mean, I guess.
Do you want a wrench
I
or a
was
laptop?
Oh, it's all right. I'll take my excavator. I can dig a hole for anyone any day.
Earlier, you said, it was real early, all this technology has a purpose. But then we've talked a lot about emissions. Do we really need it? Or are we just trying to govern the world? Because there's a lot of other places, like I said, Brazil, or you know what, that it's not required.
Well, you know why we have the after treatment. I mean, what happens when you stumble across something that can make hundreds of billions of dollars a year? You know, and the emissions fluid was a mistaken byproduct, basically.
Fertilizer.
How can we sell that? And look, like we talked about how diesel was dirty before. You know, you would sit in traffic. You had those old Mercedes that ran on diesel. You just about died if you had your window down as a kid in the 70s. Like, if your parents were behind one of those, you needed a gas mask.
Can't we get pretty good without DEF?
I believe to a certain extent we can, but we're so far down the rabbit hole. It's like electric engines. Like, I am super excited to see the hydrogen side of engines.
Yeah.
That for me is exciting. Electric, not exciting, not at all. It's not efficient. We don't have the infrastructure.
Yeah.
It's fine in small things, you know, drones and smaller things, but we really don't need it. But the government pushed it so hard, they get to a point of no return. And it'll be the same with, you know, with the emission system. The governments have pushed manufacturers so hard that they're now past that point of no return. And that's where, okay, do we need to look at the horsepower range and change it from 74 to 124 to give it a bit bigger range? Diesel fuel is better now than what it was before.
600 to 700, you can have DEF.
Why?
Everything else.
Why am I getting penalized? Why do I have to have DEF?
You just have to go to 700 now.
699 to 700 you have to have DEF.
So I'm going to say this tongue-in-cheek a little bit, but you can have my right to repair if you just get rid of DEF. I don't want it anymore. I think it's caused so much redundancy, so many more sensors, DEF tank heaters. I would love to see the stats of the service calls that are emissions related. And no longer are you a mechanic when you're going out and just fixing the shit that no one likes.
So I can give you an example. When CARB, so the Air Resources Board in California, they bought in where, you know, over-the-road trucks have to report the emissions reporting. So they have that in place now. We were early on, Steinbauer was involved in a lot of these meetings. And one of the things that I did, because I wanted to know, we have a lot of diesel repair shops that work for us, I went out and did the research, and I'm like, okay, what is the average repair cost for an over-the-road truck when the emission system shuts itself, basically, because that's what happens.
Right.
And after we did, I forget the exact number now, I think it was about 175, 180 we looked at altogether. Our average was 14,500. Now, CARB, I presented that to CARB. I'm like, this is a problem. You have to make, you know, the system has to be more reliable, because as an independent guy running an over-the-road truck, I can't, if that's 3 times in a year, that, you know, I'm at $50,000 just to repair the emission system, plus all of the waste and everything. Downtime, drivers' hours, you know, lost contracts. It's a snowball effect. So then the Air Resources Board brought in a specialist who went out and did the exact same thing as what I did, except they looked at trucks that were under 12 months old. And they came up with a reasonable figure that it was out of pocket for a truck owner would be $2,000. And you're like, not every truck is a year old that's on the road.
Not everyone can afford to have it.
Not everyone can have to afford that. And I think we're in the same position now with farming, is that where the people that they're asking are the people that are turning over the machines every year.
Yeah.
You know, they're not asking the guys that are at Ritchie Brothers auctions or Blue Wave auctions who are buying a 5-year-old piece of machinery where, you know, the emission system is going to cost them $25,000 to fix. Mm-hmm. You know, so you go out and spend your budget at auction to buy a machine, and then you bring it back to the farm. Emission system doesn't work. So you call the manufacturer, they send someone out, right. $25,000.
Yep. I actually had a neighbor that bought a combine on auction.
Yep.
Went to go get it fixed at the dealership, and someone had previously deleted it.
Yep.
And he had to spend a crap ton of money to put it back to stock emissions just so they would work on it.
Before
they even started to fix the problem that was on the combine.
Right. Yeah. It is. And You know, I have, I think I told you guys, I don't think we were on the podcast, just in a general conversation, and there was a customer of ours in Michigan who'd always had Steinbauer. He handed the farm over to his son, and they had 3 brand new combines, won't say what color, 3 brand new combines delivered, and they made a phone call. Oh, yes, I'll come out and put Steinbauer on your machines. This guy turned up, trading off our brand name, and plugged in, and he deleted the emissions and also turned off a lot of the safety settings. Now, these were brand new combines, less than 50 hours on them. They were in the middle of harvest. First one went down. Second one went down. 11:30 at night, my phone rang because the third one went down. So I go out to the customer and I'm like, where's the module? Oh, no, it's the new Steinbauer. It's the software update version. Yeah, we don't actually do that. Now, that farmer had his warranty voided by the manufacturer because they'd turned off the emissions and they'd switched off safety settings for temperature, which were essential for the engine not to take it. And that's where this right to repair and the things being so complicated is a slippery slope.
That's the protection piece.
That's it. That's where you've got to have some protection for the manufacturer, but also look at it as you've spent $1 million on a piece of equipment, you also need protection. You want to make sure that the person coming to repair your machine is qualified to do it, and they're not going to turn off things that they shouldn't. I get it. You know, as a manufacturer, I get it. But, you know, when you're standing in the middle of a cornfield after midnight, and this guy's looking at me for an answer, and I'm going, yeah, it's not us. There's nothing I can do for you. He's like, can you fix it now? I'm like, what do you want me to do? Oh, but he said it was a Steinbauer. Okay, I get that, but it's not.
Yeah, he's not with me.
He's not with me, and this is really hard. This is where you almost need to have a verification. You know, I am a John Deere certified mechanic. Here's my number. I'm a Case certified technician. Here's my number. They get a service number so that any work that they do can be traced back to them, so that if perhaps they need to learn something, or if they notice there's a common fault in that area, or they have a service rider outstanding.
It's like here at Uchi.
Yeah.
We have to scan our badge just to eat lunch.
Exactly.
We know exactly who eats.
Yep.
I was just going to say, it's not the kind of fun I want to be having in a cornfield at midnight.
Hey, because, I mean, I could think of better things
fair.
to
Exactly.
do, but...
Exactly.
I mean, you
Sleep.
know me. I mean, a customer's going to ring me. He wasn't that far away. I'm jumping in the car
Sure.
going, oh my God, what's happened?
And you hadn't done anything wrong.
And hadn't done anything wrong, but this is where the misinformation comes in. So until such time as we get a clear and concise message and determine what do farmers really need, what do the independent technicians need, and the manufacturers, where are the manufacturers happy to draw the line where independent repairers can do safely?
Right.
We're just going to keep going around like Groundhog Day, and nothing's going to get achieved.
Yeah, because that's the key issues
Yeah.
that we've talked about. Manufacturers that have the concern about ensuring proper repair and maintenance practices get done. Where that limit stop point is, the risk of unauthorized problems. The risk of unauthorized processes causing problems and the bad people. It's not so much, it doesn't sound like it's so much about cybersecurity. Like, I'm sure that's a play in it.
Look, I think moving forward that especially when machines become autonomous, that could be an issue. But at a certain
Yeah, if you
point,
really wanted to screw with your neighbor, that tractor would be out there working in the field, and if you could drive by and make it stop.
yeah,
Ah,
or
hack in.
turn off the oil temperature, turn off oil temperature sensor, engine get hot, the whole field. You can set a county on fire. I mean,
Right.
last year was bad for fires.
Yeah.
That was tough. I don't know honestly what the answer is, but until such time as we get a fairly good understanding of what everybody expects versus, one side of the argument going, we want everything, and then the other side of the argument going,
You get
well,
nothing.
we're happy to get you some things, but we're not going to give you everything. Who's the person that's stuck in the middle? It's the farmer.
Wait.
He's the one that's in the middle.
Which is wild, because I expected her to say, we want everything, and then we want to give you nothing. But that's not the case.
No.
There's one side saying we want everything, and one side that's saying we're willing to give you a lot.
Yeah, but and that's the difficult thing with legislation and regulatory is if you don't get the verbiage right, it can be a huge mess. You can create a bigger mess than what you started out with. And I think where both sides are, this side is all in on, no, that's not right, and you shouldn't do it this way, and it's not fair for us, and we want everything. And the manufacturers are going, well, we're happy to give you some things,
Right.
but it's a give and take. You can't have everything and not give up anything in return.
So I don't know if we've figured anything out. Are we for right to repair or not for right to repair?
Well, what she just said also leads into what you've been telling me for a long time. You can't have everything. You can't have cheap and quality. I mean, you say it all the time when it comes to food.
I also say cool's not cheap and cheap's not cool.
Yeah.
But but
It's not nice for you to say I'm cheap.
well, we were having this conversation with eggs, right?
Yep.
Have you bought eggs recently? I've seen $9 a dozen, $5 a dozen here in the Midwest, which is crazy. I used to sell eggs for $1 a dozen. And I got all these people complaining about the price of food, price of eggs. But then you scroll back through most of their timelines, and in the last year, we need better quality food, and it needs to be raised better. And
Organic,
organic, non-GMO, conventional, whatever. And now they're complaining about it. Like, you can't have both.
I mean, most people are surprised that, before you actually get to eat something in the US, it's traveled on average 1,500 miles to get to you. You have some of the best food quality in the world, but what happened? There was too much regulation, and then big business and lobbyists got involved. And it's like, okay, so now it makes more sense to transport strawberries 1,500 miles versus grow them locally. No, it doesn't. And this all plays into the same thing where I said, like, you get too many lawyers in a room and you end up with a great big pile of poo that no one can sort through. And this is where we're at now with right to repair. You've got lawyers on both sides, but on this side of the argument, on the what's supposed to be the farmer's side, but I don't even know if they've really talked to many farmers.
Only about 20
and that-
minutes left.
That to me is probably what is the stickiest issue for getting progress done. Is I think the people that have the power to write new regulation are probably scared to what the economic factors are going to be.
Yeah.
How's the market going to sort itself back out after we write something, and how is what we get written going to be interpreted?
Exactly, but at a certain point, sometimes you don't need people from government in a building to come to a resolution. Like, if you came to something like this, like Uchi, you have big equipment operators here. Some people have got 60, 70 pieces of equipment, plus over-the-road trucks, plus skid steers and pickups. Send somebody here and set up a meeting room and have a control group of questions and find out what people really want. Don't sit behind a desk in Washington or wherever and let lawyers decide what farmers really want. Because like you said, at the end of the day, you don't want to be a computer programmer. You want to be able to fix what you can fix. What you can't fix, call a local guy and not worry about your warranty, and that he can have access to the John Deere software, the Case software, Kubota, whoever it is, to fix stuff. And then the rest, yes, that's the manufacturer's problem. But unless you start asking the right people the right questions, we're not going to make any progress. We're Steinbauer is a member of the American Equipment Manufacturers. We have been, I think, for 13, 14 years now, because that for me was very important, was to keep in touch with the industry. What is everyone doing? Where do we go with things? There is nothing that they're asking for which is unreasonable. They're just asking for their intellectual property to be protected. They're asking for you, the equipment owner, to be protected. I don't think that's unreasonable.
I don't think so. You know what the right to repair hasn't taken from you, Tanner?
No, Corey. What?
The ability for you to get plugged in
Jesus.
with a Steinbauer and save time and money and get up to 25% more torque and horsepower.
I hope that gets edited masterfully.
Well, I'm just wondering, like, you have somebody that works for you that doesn't know the difference between, like, a 4-pin and 8-pin? Is that because he had to use two hands instead of one?
12.
8
It
and
was.
12.
It was the difference between 8 and
Oh,
12.
he didn't take his shoes off.
That's what it was.
That's what it was.
Yep.
He ran out of fingers and went,
So
oh,
what
no.
he did is he went and looked at it and he counted the wires out the back side of the plug. He didn't unplug it. And then when he unplugged it, he went, oh, there's more pins than wires. Well, he only counted what he could see and was exposed. So yes,
Oh, well.
we had to send it back. But I will vouch for Sherie and Steinbauer. She's done a great job. One with our relationship at Farm for Profit, but with my family too. We were doing high moisture corn this year. 16-row corn head. We were combining 1.9 miles an hour first day. 32, 34% corn. Might have been 36 even that early. But I called her up. I said, "How soon can you get us a module?" We put that on. We're running 3.5 mile an hour. So. That was great, and the rest of the season we got to reap the rest of the benefits of it too. So,
and I think for me, it's always been about the farmer. It's not about selling a module to everybody because not everyone needs one, and it's about being available and being honest with customers. Like, if somebody doesn't, I mean, the first guy that we had this morning at the booth. And I'm like, I don't need to sell you anything. He's like, he had more than enough power, and he's like, yeah, but I want one. Well, that's great. And I can sell you one, but you don't need it. Yeah. Oh, but the other guys said that they could, reduce my fuel by 15%. Yeah, good luck with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It just, for us, and for me personally, this is like 17 years I've been in the US. I still get phone calls or text messages from a customer that I met 12 years ago. I had one the other day from Farm Machinery Show 8 years ago. And he's like, "Hey, Sherie, can you get me those modules for the John Deere?" Sure.
Yeah.
You are? He's like, "You don't remember me?"
Oh, yeah.
Hey, I thought that's what we were pushing for here, is to not be a number.
Not be a number, but there's only so many people I can store in my head.
Yes.
But for us, it's about farmers, and that's why we love the farm for profit relationship that we have, because you guys are very honest and real with people, and this for us is really important.
Yeah.
And we get a lot of phone calls. We watch the podcast, or for us, that's great.
Yeah, and I don't know if I would have been nervous without knowing you to put a module on and potentially increase the performance on our new combine. But obviously from what you've done with us and the true person that you have been, I knew you're going to stand by it working, performing, and it has.
It is. I traveled to 36 states last year visiting farmers. So
Do you have a module in Hawaii?
No, but we need to find one.
We do.
I think because
and we should make them a
fairly
an
sure that we should go to a pineapple show or something,
sure.
and what, mid-January,
What
early
about
January.
Boats use big diesel motors.
We do boats.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do boats.
I was fishing in Hawaii. That thing could have used more power.
We've got them on lobster boats up in Alaska. So we've got some on lobster boats in Alaska. A big one now for us is catamarans, because the catamarans have a dual Yanmar engine, and a catamaran is basically a floating apartment.
Like a yacht.
Yeah, it is. Like, the catamarans, you have 45, 50 feet, and people put all kinds of crap in them.
Right.
We
you got
do
space,
have a
let's fill it up.
goal. We've done a podcast on an airplane. We've done a podcast on a train.
Okay.
We have not done one on a boat, particularly a yacht. Rachel said she
yacht.
would stay back and watch everything for us.
She's going to watch all the kids at UG.
Yeah, while we go on a yacht. So
Yeah, I can hook that up.
that'd be cool.
I have people. I know people that have got boats. Well, the owner of the company, Steinbauer, he has a boat, and he has the modules. That's where the Yanmar modules were developed, was on his boat. So, but we've sold quite a lot. The sailing community is like the farming community. It's very small.
Yeah.
And so once one person finds out you've got something, that works, it kind of snowball effects from there. But
So from here, what can our listeners do? We've got listeners that sit on boards everywhere. We've got listeners that are tight with legislatures. We've got some that actually hold a state lobbyist position, or even some that are legislatures themselves.
Look, I think at this point is what we need to do as an industry is, instead of pulling in all different directions, we need to make a conscious decision that we want to get right to repair right, and we want to get it right for farmers and for manufacturers and for the independent repair people. So, and we need to get a proper advisory board together, not lobbyists here and a farming group over here that has their own interests, not the farmers' interests, but their own interests at heart. Let's get the right people at a table together. And, Uchi is a 3-day event. I am sure that if you could sit down the right people from a collection of different kind of farming, dairy farming, you're talking to one of the guys who cuts silage, you get some dairy farmers together, some row crop, cotton farm. You get people from different areas of the industry. You get mechanics involved and get the manufacturers there. Don't hate the manufacturer. Everyone thinks because it's Steinbauer, we must hate manufacturers. I love them. Some of the best they do great things. They've developed amazing technology. Don't take that away from them. Bring them in and let's sit down together in a room. Let's leave the lawyers out of it. And let's come up with clear lines as to what everyone wants. That's kind of where we're at.
Well, there's shows, hundreds of shows across the United States.
Exactly.
In every ag industry corner. What a cross-section that you could have.
Why not have ag lead the way?
Yeah. I mean, from an ag point of view, but this is where it's hard because the farmers are getting told the wrong thing. They're being told the wrong information and the wrong message. So they automatically get on the defensive. Oh, well, the manufacturer doesn't want to give me anything. That's not actually true. But like you said, there's plenty of farm shows. Take a focus group of people, walk around, ask the right questions, come up with a solution. But really, at the end of the day, leave the lawyers out of it. They're the ones that make things too complicated. We need them to draft it at the end. We don't need them in the room to have a discussion and work out what's good for who, because you know what you want.
Right. So basically, they should just call you.
No, I'm just kidding.
No.
They could call us.
And
Which
it's
number?
literally half of the... Hey.
You can call us. Actually, you know what? I just
No,
got that
no,
number.
no.
I just got that number today.
Oh, you don't have her third one.
I got a text from this number, and I went, what in the world? Oh.
No,
He's
she's
got
got a real one. She's got her burner phone, and then she got an extra burner.
They've got the secret squirrel number.
I love it.
There must have been I think there was a couple of glasses of wine involved
Probably.
when I messaged you from the secret
Yeah, you can
squirrel
only
number.
imagine what came in that. No.
That's funny. That's great. Well, Sherie, you always enlighten us, and I appreciate your transparency. Well, I also appreciate your involvement. The amount of legwork that you've done to try and get perspective. 500 conversations or more is just fascinating. That you've done what you can to get the right information put together.
And I'm one person. Imagine if we could get together as an industry and get enough people out there. This huge bogged down piece of legislation that everyone's fighting over. If we could just get the right people involved. A lot of that would go away. And I'm all for protecting the manufacturers. That innovation is expensive. The presentation we saw at lunchtime today from John Deere, the lengths that they've gone to from how long it used to take to develop something to now, that doesn't come for free.
Right.
And if we make it so that, developers stop developing, where are we going to be? If it costs so much for you to then just go, oh, here you go. You can have it all.
Yeah. We even get frustrated when people steal our stuff on TikTok. And that's relatively, if you create the fake farm for profit account and start putting stuff out, that's our intellectual property.
Exactly. It's your brand. We get frustrated at Steinbauer because we have people that trade off our brand.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, this is bigger than one manufacturer, than one farm. It's a big thing. So, uh-oh.
What do we got?
10 minutes left.
Oh, the bar's opening.
Bar's getting open. I love it. Well, that's the perfect time to wrap up the conversation.
I don't think that'll be our last one about it.
No.
No, I really, I think what would be good is, to maybe pull an independent repair shop and that deals with, OE equipment, get a couple of different farmers at the table. I think it's a good discussion to have.
That would be a cool suggestion. I know some of the reps from this show have been bouncing around, and they've talked about it coming back to Des Moines next year. We maybe should have them put a panel together.
We could talk to our friends at Joe Bush.
Could.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it could be an opportunity for us to provide that type of feedback for a couple of trade shows that we go to, and maybe we start this data collection process as a little bit of a grassroots effort.
I think it would be. I mean, it's only a benefit to everybody, But like I said, let's keep the lawyers out of it, and let's keep the people that it really affects in the conversation.
Perfect. That's great. Sherie, thank you again. 1, for hosting us at this show.
You're very
and
welcome.
2, for your insights. We love that as always. And folks, check out Steinbauer USA.
Steinbauer.us.
.us.
Yeah. So, and there is I did do an article on right to repair that gave some more information, so you can get that on the Steinbauer.us website. And for some unknown reason, everybody seems to find my cell number. I don't mind. Send me a text message.
It's not me.
It's not you.
It's not
Nope.
me.
I don't know.
I'm
I've handed
I'm
out
putting it
thousands
in
of
the show
business
notes.
cards.
Putting it in the show notes. If anything, people are going to go to the show notes, and this will be the first time they read them because they're looking for Sherry's phone number. It's hidden.
Because she's got them blocked from
It's
DMs.
hidden in the middle. Again, listeners, thank you for everything that you've done. And if you've got questions or more suggestions on maybe how we can push this effort and initiative forward, let us know. farmforprofitllc@gmail.com. Send us a text, 515-207-9640. But until next time, have a good one.